In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall.
I graduated out of college. I was looking for a job. I got a job interview with a major tobacco company, and I went to work for those people. I've worked for 30-something years. I traveled to every country where I grew tobacco: Guatemala, Mexico, Brazil, Honduras, Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria. I bought tobacco all over the world. I bought the quality tobacco that we use for our cigarettes. The diversity of working there gave me a lot of insight on, once I retired from the company, to start my own business. How I got back into the farming thing was, a lot of my friends, they was buying places at the beach, they was buying places in the mountains, and I said, you know, Kentucky is not bad. I'm doing some of the same things, some of the same connections I have all over the world. Mainly here, I grow and sell commercial hay, and now I am a hemp grower. During the growing process, you know, the first years, it was very challenging. There was no one to ask, no book to read on how to properly grow hemp and keep it cultivated. So it was a very different type of situation. You had to learn as you went along. The weeds are a major problem for us here in Kentucky. This piece of grass here, you gotta pull the whole root out, otherwise it comes right back. The reason I got into business is I have a younger sister that had multiple sclerosis, and I saw some of the benefits that it gave her from using the cannabis plant, and so I got interested in hemp. 90% of my crop is CBD RX cherry number 9. It's my 3rd year growing, and I haven't had any problems with it. I know the plant now. I know how to handle it.
I'm Kirsten Bonert. I'm co-founder of Kentucky Hempsters and principal of United Hemp Industries.
And I'm Alyssa Erickson, also co-founder of Kentucky Hempsters and principal of United Hemp Industries. Kentucky Hempsters began when we were in college. We go back, we've been best friends for 8, almost 9 years now. We'd both done internships in fields that we were not satisfied with, and we were about to graduate and decided we wanted to use all of our skills for something that we were passionate about, something that could benefit Kentucky, benefit our farmers. So hemp, doing our research, that was something historically that Kentucky relied on. Essentially, the whole state almost developed off of this industry. So we began to research and realized that no one really knew about this. This is sort of a lost history, a lost industry that had been stigmatized for so many years because of its relation to marijuana and people not understanding the difference. Meanwhile, the 2014 Farm Bill passed, and at that point we felt like we were in the right place at the right time.
In 2015, we're able to acquire a processing license under the Department of Agriculture, and that allows us to process raw hemp materials into finished products. That is how we've been able to facilitate these historic projects, the one behind us being at Henry Place Estate.
Obviously, my website and phone number and all that stuff's on there, but if you ever want more product, it is listed on the tin. So we do sell online, we will sell in the gift shop.
Each of these products contains the hemp seed, and if you can see here, there's no seeds on this plant yet, but they will form in the flowers up at the top. If you look at a marijuana grow, you'll notice the plants are big and bushy, almost like you'd grow tomatoes. And so, because what you want is the flower, the bud. And whereas hemp, which is grown for industrial purposes, you want the seed pod, which is right here at the top, or for fiber growing, you want the stalk, which is this long, skinny stalk. So compare it to a marijuana plant, hemp is traditionally tall and skinny with the flowers at the top, whereas a marijuana plant's like a tomato plant with a bunch of branches and a bunch of buds. Marijuana has upwards of 20 to 25% THC, whereas hemp plants, as required by law, must have below 0.3%, so not even a whole percent. And as far as people messing with our crop, you can see our really high fence here. We haven't had any issues per se. I know that other locations have had, one or two high school kids come by and sniff off at the top. But they learn quick, they don't get what they think they want out of it.
I'm Chad Rosen. I have a company called Victory Hemp Foods. We manufacture hemp hearts, hemp oil, and hemp protein powder here in Kentucky. We manufacture and grow Henry County, Oldham County, and Jefferson County. I'm not from Kentucky. I moved here when they passed the 2014 Farm Bill. We had a lot of motivated voter constituents who are pressuring their congressmen and their senators and their representatives to find an alternative crop to introduce, right? And Kentucky has such a rich history with growing hemp. It used to be the #1 cash crop in the state that it made a lot of sense to bring it back into the rotation and give it a shot. %50 of what we do is education. People don't know because hemp's been in the cage for, umpteen years as cannabis. So we're able to kind of open up this dialogue about actually it has more digestible protein than any other plant-based protein on the market. We have the ideal ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s. Our country is stuffed to the gills with fish oil. Fish get their omegas from eating algae or eating plankton that eat algae. It's a plant-based polyunsaturated fatty acid, and we're able to have this conversation with people that there's this aha moment, and I think people welcome that.
I'm Mallory Sanborn. I'm Director of Operations at Victory Hemp Foods. I used to work for an agriculture accelerator, and it was based in DC. They put me in Louisville, so I was working in Louisville, and I got to know Chad through that because Victory Hemp Foods is an alumni of the Village Capital Accelerator Program, and I saw the huge opportunity that was involved with this business. I have a lot of digestion issues, so hemp is the most digestible plant-based protein. It's 98% digestible, so I have 9 foods I can eat. I got a parasite in Guatemala a couple of years ago. Having the 8 go to 9 foods was a big deal to me and very important. So I saw the health benefits and also the benefits it can have to the farmer and the economy. All those together kind of made this a no-brainer to come on to Victory Hemp.
I'm Todd Willian. I'm a professor of agriculture here in the Western Kentucky University Department of Agriculture. I'm responsible for teaching and research in field crops. That would be primarily corn, wheat, soybeans, things like that. And most recently, for the last 4 years, we've been doing some research in industrial hemp. We are able to grow it by obtaining permits from the DEA via the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, who is the conduit between the grower and the federal government within the state of Kentucky. We're on the Western Kentucky University farm. The ones that are kind of more yellow and shorter, these are the males, so their job is, they just have one job, and that's to shed the pollen. The taller, greener plants that you see here are the females, so once they're pollinated and fertilized, they form seed on these little flower structures that you see interspersed among the leaves here. Not all hemp varieties are male and female plants. Some have male and female flowers on the same plant. It's been an important crop for most of our country's history. But recently, some laws were put into place by the state of Kentucky and also the federal government to allow certain states to grow it within a research framework, which is usually referred to as the pilot program. The fiber is contained on the outside of the stalk, actually. So you can see the white interior and the fiber, which now is green. I'm peeling it off the stalk, but it would be, when dried, it would be a brownish color when it was processed. But it is a strong fiber, can be very long as they grow up these long stalks. We really didn't know what to expect. We can read about Canada's hemp production or hemp production in Europe, but we're in a very different geography. We have different ratios of daylight and dark in the summer. We have different growing seasons, differing soils. Since it hasn't been grown much, basically none in this state since World War II, things have changed a lot agriculturally since then. Different varieties, there were no pesticides or fertilizers. We're just trying to take this old crop that's kind of newly reestablished and determine some best management practices for the farmers in Kentucky.
My name is Katie Moyer. I am the owner of Kentucky Hemp Works. We are a small-scale family business. We do oil seed processing, so we crush seed for oil, and seed cake, which is the byproduct of the oil. We manufacture some products. We do a lot of bulk raw materials. We do some wholesaling and a small amount of retail. We started this company with a root salve that really just started out as an experimental thing. We were tinkering around with the roots in the kitchen after the 2014 crop, which was the first crop under the U.S. Farm Bill. Didn't expect to be in business 3 years later, but the root salve ended up helping so many people that we simply just could not stop making it.
The roots have been historically used as an anti-inflammatory. It was used for arthritis pain. Now that we're growing part of the crop in the greenhouse, we just pluck them right out of the pots that they're in. All the roots are contained in a pot, and then it's just a matter of a fairly thorough cleaning at the time, and then another cleaning later once they're dry.
There's always either mother plants that are being cloned or baby plants, baby clones that are getting established, and the roots are developing and they're getting ready to be planted in the field. Our sheriff knew that we wanted to do this before we even had a chance to do it. So now that we're actually growing it, we keep him abreast of where the crop locations will be. One time somebody drove by and happened to see the plants and did call the sheriff's office, but it was an easy fix. They gave us a call. We confirmed the location of the plot and the fact that it was a state contracted research facility, and there was really no issues with it.
I think there's a myth that hemp and marijuana are the same thing. They're not. They do look alike, and that presents a challenge for law enforcement to try to tell the difference, because you can't really tell visually. It takes a chemical lab test in order to do so, but you can't get high from smoking hemp. If you're getting high from what you think is hemp, that's actually marijuana. So,
my interest in hemp started as a property rights issue. I was concerned with the fact that farmers were not allowed to grow a crop on their own property. I saw this as something that was an agricultural issue, a property rights issue, a liberty issue. I never really thought that I would be doing this as my own profession. I thought that I would just be clearing a path for farmers to get involved. But what really solidified it for me was the fact that there was a lot of links in the chain that were missing. We had plenty of farmers that wanted to grow hemp, plenty of people who wanted to purchase hemp, but we didn't have anything in the way of processing and manufacturing. So we just stepped in and started doing it.
How's it going?
I'll do the hip one.
You got it.
Hypnosis.
Appreciate it.
We are struggling with the card right now, but you can send us PayPal money. You do that.
My name is Annie Rouse. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm the founder of Friends of Hemp, as well as the founder of Think Hempy Thoughts. Back in the 1700s, late 1700s, when hemp was first brought into America, it was brought into Virginia and then into Kentucky. It was in Kentucky where we really started breeding a lot of the native seed varieties and found that the fiber grew really well here, the seed grew very well here because of that great soil that Kentucky has, and maybe a little bit of the clay or the limestone, I'm not totally sure. But because it grew so well here, it just became known as some of the strongest hemp in the world was Kentucky hemp, and that was kind of a standard in the industry. Because we haven't been growing it in so long, but we don't have even the most minor definitions. And in order for a farmer to grow it according to those standards, and in order for a processor to process it according to manufacturer's standards, there needs to be those specifications and definitions actually written. Just things like that people don't really realize are needed in the industry, but are actually some of the most important pieces in order to really grow the industry. This beer is delicious, by the way. Everyone should come and try it.
We start with base malt. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to crack open that grain and get to that little white starch inside. And then there's different crystal malts that give you the different flavor profiles and color. So you can see if you put some of this in, you're going to make it a little bit darker, but if you put some of that in, you're going to make it real dark. What we're here to talk about is the hemp seeds. So in our Uncle John's Ground hemp beer, we used hemp seeds during our mashing process, which happens in the kettle right here. Once you get it mashed in, what you're doing is you're pulling out the starches and you're going to convert them to sugars at a certain temperature, put it over into a boil kettle, and that's where you add your hops, your flavor and aroma and bittering hops. And depending on when you add those is what you get out of those hops. Then you cool it down and then you throw it into a fermenter. After that process is complete, you carbonate it and serve it to your customers. Rock House has been open since December 17th, 2016. I've been a home brewer for over 20 years. Originally grew up in northern Indiana, moved to Kentucky in 1992. Engineer by trade with an MBA. Always wanted my own business, and it was just a logical fit to start a brewery since it was a hobby that I really enjoyed doing.
We had a challenge of trying to find the right grinder to grind the product. We first used what's called a feed tub grinder. It's a humongous piece of machine that farmers use to grind up their feed on the farm. We were losing a lot of our product out into the air because of the type of machinery that we were using. And I created an enclosed system here, this hammer mill. Before, our CBD only came in at 6 or 8%. This year we noticed that our CBD, with the same plant, same variety, everything the same, we're coming in from 10 to 12 to 15%. Again, basically what we do is put the bud and flowers onto the conveyor here. It goes up the conveyor and it goes into something that's called what's called a hammer mill. It goes to the grinder, it falls down into the little hopper here. So once it comes out of the hammer mill, this is the product here that we're producing here. You see it sticks together nicely. It's showing that it has nice oil in it.
CBD or cannabidiol is a huge industry that's just really scratching the surface as a medical or a therapeutic property. It's non-psychoactive and is actually truly the real medicinal value in all of cannabis. THC in marijuana, of course, has some value with nausea and appetite. However, CBD has really been found to be much more beneficial for pain and neurological disorders.
My name is Latoya Bryant. I'm a special education teacher. This is my 14th year now.
One more speed bump to go.
It's a very active job. You have to be constantly on your feet, chasing around little people, or just the daily walking through the building. With using CBD, it helps to alleviate a lot of the joint pain that I have.
Somebody turned me on to this grocery store, and it's literally just right around the corner from my house. It's off of Bardstown Road, and the store is straight ahead. It's called, I think it's Bellel. I think that's how you pronounce it, B-E-L-E-L. Bellel International Food Market.
Back in June of 2016, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. And so almost turning 35, nobody ever imagines having cancer at that age. I just decided that, yes, you have stage 4 cancer, but you know what? It's not your time to die, and you have no other choice but to fight for your life. So I went through 12 rounds of chemotherapy. I was actually working and going through chemotherapy at the same time, and my students were amazing with supporting me through the process. And I didn't want to hide it from them, because I feel like kids can handle tough subjects as long as you give them the tools that they need to be able to deal with it. I traveled to Jamaica last summer on a vacation with some friends, and they had this sorrel ginger drink, and it was so amazing. So on my quest to try and recreate this sorrel ginger drink, that's how I ended up creating my ginger sorrel health elixir. So it comes in packages like this, and it's called sorrel. You see it's organic, 100% natural. But here's the cool part. All the things that it's good for. It prevents numerous diseases like cancer, diabetes, heart diseases. For me, being a survivor, I'm, trying to find anything, that will keep me from getting cancer again. But eventually my body gave out. Unfortunately, being a teacher, it was way more cost effective to be in the classroom and teach than to be out on FMLA, because insurance runs out and you only get 66.6% of your paycheck. And then one day, once I returned back to work, and I was just driving down the street, and I just saw this sign that said CBD hemp oil for sale. And I was shocked and amazed, like, oh my gosh, it's for sale in Kentucky? It's legal finally? And I was like, I've got to try it. Thank you. Because even after you finish going through chemotherapy and I was back to work, people think that, oh, she's back, she's fine. But really, chemo stays in your body for 6 months to a year, just still processing and killing things. So you still feel the fatigue. I have created a ginger sorrel shot, which is fresh ginger, sorrel, and then it's lemon juice, cane sugar, and then I put a bag of green tea in there. Oh yeah. Oh, it smells so good, it looks good. And I just add the CBD in at the very, very end, and I just take one shot each morning, and you can literally feel it, like you can feel the warmth of it just tinkling through your body. And then to see that ginger, the ginger gives it just a little bit of spice. See, that's what we're looking for, that good drip. It can give us another option than always having to refer to Big Farm to try and treat our ailments and sickness. I mean, for me, CBD has truly been a lifesaver because it allowed me to work. Even though I shouldn't have been working, it allowed me to work, so I can take care of myself than just sitting around being in pain or popping a bunch of pills,
After it became illegal in 1937, then production really diminished, and then when it became controlled under the Controlled Substance Act, it completely disappeared. When I was in college, I actually ended up writing a research paper about hemp, and it sparked my interest for it. Hemp really became the impetus for sustainable development, sustainable agriculture, and pushed me into that area, which ultimately ended up bringing me back to Kentucky after some time in California and Canada. After the Farm Bill passed in 2014, I moved back here to start some businesses and help Kentucky reacquaint itself as the hemp capital of the world.
American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy as well as of our industries. In 1942, patriotic farmers at the government's request planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand%. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp. In Kentucky, much of the seed hemp acreage is on river bottom land such as this, along the Kentucky River Gorge. Some of these fields are inaccessible except by boat. Thus, plans are afoot for a great expansion of the hemp industry as a part of the war program. This film is designed to tell farmers how to handle this ancient crop, now little known outside Kentucky and Wisconsin.
The significance of Kentucky, has a lot to do with the history. Not only were we one of the leading producers of hemp in the United States, most people know that Kentucky grew fiber for World War II, for ropes and things like that. Some people know that they used the seed oil in high-altitude airplanes because of the viscosity of the oil. But not a lot of people realize that Kentucky was also a seed-producing state for other states to grow hemp.
Because of the stigma that hemp has had for so long, we've lost 80 years of research. So we established Friends of Hemp in order to build standards in the industry and helping fundraise for education, like to get chefs acquainted with using the material or the food products, as well as getting the community to learn how to incorporate it into their diets. And in that sense, it can normalize hemp as a food and not as a drug. Like having these beers here, people are like, wow, I didn't know you could use hemp in an ale or anything like that.
Today I was the youngest person there by like 50 years. It was fun. Yeah, and then Luca and I would make thing.
It's all cannabis sativa. Just, your public service message here is that it's all cannabis. If someone's like, well, I don't eat cannabis or whatever it is, we're in the cannabis industry. But the difference is anything in the cannabis sativa family with less than 0.3% THC, which is a designation that the federal government came up with, is industrial hemp, right? So it can look the same, smell the same, taste the same, grow the same, smoke the same. It doesn't give you those good dreams, doesn't make you give you the munchies, because it doesn't have enough THC, which is that tetrahydrocannabinol molecule that's going to get you high, right? So that's what the federal government's looking for. I think that there's a lot of interest in what Kentucky's doing for CBD. It's such a beautiful drop-in replacement for tobacco farmers. Not only is it the right growing climate, but the knowledge base for CBD cultivation is ripe.
We maximize our CBD. That's where the money is. Everything else, again, that comes off of that is a byproduct. It's very tough. Some of our customers are looking at this to use it maybe as some type of a bedding for cats or dogs or horses or whatever. The way I look at it, and a lot of us growers look at it, that everything is usable.
I'm a processor. I rely on producers for our hemp grain that we process into our products. The challenges that producers face are myriad. We're lucky to have the land-grant universities working with us, holding our hand and standing beside us as we try new cultivation techniques to find out which methods are going to work best and yield us our best results. We lose a lot of grain, a lot of crop, a lot of yield to weeds. We have some really strong weed pressure here in Kentucky. It's convex of the Ohio River Valley. The regulations that we face with regard to importing certified seed from overseas and getting a DEA permit in order to receive our seed to plant, it can really mess up the timeline. I don't think the DEA has any urgency with the seasons of, hey, we got to get it in the ground because it's got to establish itself before the weeds do. So it's not okay if we don't get our seed by May. That can totally ruin your entire crop and lead to an entire loss, which, you know, you can maybe sustain 1 year of loss on limited acreage if you're a farmer, but the way the price of corn is now, the way the price of soy is going, the place the tobacco went, there's not a lot of fat on the backs of farmers today in order to carve out another loss for a speculative crop. So when we have very limited resources in terms of a knowledge base, it makes it very challenging to overcome some of those obstacles.
I'm Denise Raine. I'm the founder of Heritage Gardens. We are a minority-owned hemp processing and handling company, and we are standing in the 24-acre expanse where Heritage Gardens and the concept began. I'm fairly new to the hemp industry. I am from Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised, but I've always had an affinity and love for agriculture, just as a Kentuckian in general, I guess. I had solicited the city to do a development piece within the urban part of the city of Louisville. A major component of that development was to house a hemp distribution center. I saw how hemp would be able to be incorporated all throughout the project with using hemp as a possible land remediation technique as opposed to mechanical or chemical means. And even far into the project's completion, with a portion of this acreage being dedicated for a ropes course, with the ropes being derived from hemp and it being something available for youth recreationally or for character building exercises. The council decided not to move forward with my proposed development, largely due to skepticism surrounding the cannabis taboo. Challenges associated with a project of this scale, wanting to do a distribution center here in urban West Louisville, is educating a community so that they realize that you're not wanting to open up a drug distribution center right here across from their neighborhood schools or churches or daycares.
We're trying to reassociate hemp with our heritage, our history, because Kentuckians are proud. We are Kentucky proud, you know, from bourbon, horses, basketball. Tobacco's gone, you know, and coal is, you know, declining too. So an industry like this is something people are able to now see its potential because of a project like this. And it just happens to be that Henry Clay was one of the largest proponents for hemp during his time and pioneered the industry. So we thought, what better way to remove stigmas and get people comfortable and familiar with this crop than to grow it right here, where it used to be grown 150 years ago.
Henry Clay was one of the foremost political figures of the first half of the 19th century in the United States, both a representative and a senator, as well as Secretary of State. This farm he developed into one of the finest farms in the United States. He was known nationwide for his agricultural products and was a pioneer in the growing of hemp, and one of the people responsible for making Kentucky one of the largest producers, if not the largest producer of hemp in the country in his time. My name is Eric Brooks. I am the curator at Ashland, the Henry Clay Estate. Henry Clay writes a chapter in a book explaining hemp and how to grow it. And one of the things he says in this article is that Kentucky is, at the time that he's writing this article, well placed to grow hemp, to produce hemp, because of its ready and abundant supply of enslaved labor. And that was certainly true for Henry Clay. Hemp was a very labor-intensive crop, and because slavery was legal here, there was a ready supply of labor to make that happen. And there's no question that Henry Clay's personal wealth, personal fortune, was largely tied to the produce of his enslaved labor. This was one of the farm journals from here on the farm. This one is from the UK Special Collections, from a family collection of papers that descended in the family of Henry Clay's son John. All of the people are enslaved African Americans. What it's recording is the amount of hemp that they broke on a given day. Each one of those squares is a different day. So if it says 104, that's 104 pounds of hemp that they broke.
We have minorities that are involved in the hemp program in Kentucky. I probably know every one of them. We have all left the farm. Basically, I came back to the farm. You understand? So therefore, there are not many minorities farming, period. It's expensive to get into business, so no one gets into business. So you either have to inherit it or you have to have a damn good banker, okay?
In the 20s and 30s, a movement came about that was very much concerned about the impact of marijuana on society. And hemp being closely related to marijuana, it got swept up in that movement and eventually banned. We are now in a process of hopefully recapturing that industry. I think we are uniquely positioned climatically and in other ways to grow hemp. I think we're in a place where, with the right things happening in the near future, perhaps we can once again be a major producer of hemp. And it can be a major cash commodity for this state and help out a lot of people who are looking for ways to have their own businesses and to have cash commodities like tobacco used to be some years ago.
Try and shine just a little bit.
My name's CJ Carter. My profession is I'm a tonsorial artist, or what you may know as a barber. I'm also a psychologist, a sociologist, a therapist. I cover a wide gambit of things as a barber. And I am the president of the Cannabis Economic Diversity Association, better known as CEDA. Our objectives are economic empowerment, social justice, patient and consumer awareness, as well as entrepreneurship. So it should be more expenses that are incurred trying to set up a nonprofit.
My role with CEDA is I provide the consumerism aspect using the products for CEDA to be around and give people like me, just a regular school teacher, that opportunity. It's exciting compared to why does it always have to be the top 1% that monopolizes everything.
Start talking about the for-profit side as a non-profit.
Our people how to farm and distill and be a part of the industry.
Our aim is to ensure that as the responsible commercialization of cannabis industry occurs, that minorities have a seat at the table and that industry doesn't become an exclusive club, such as how the horse racing industry and the bourbon industry and even the tobacco industry have been for years for Kentucky.
This prohibition is about to end, and this only happens once in a lifetime. It's never going to happen again. In states that have legalization, we're kind of left out of that picture, even though we've paid the most cost associated with the war on drugs. That does have a great effect on people who look like me, because even though we use cannabis, for example, in the same rates, we're more likely to be arrested. Unfortunately, if you're arrested and you incur a felony, a lot goes with that felony. Like one of the major things is, you lose your right to vote. That's why it's so important to be an advocate for my community and for individuals like myself, so we can partake in what's actually going on, especially here in the state of Kentucky. Because, once upon a time, this state, it was the hemp capital of the world.
You get 2 for each ticket.
All right, thank you.
So everyone will get 2 of those. So yeah, just hold on to the keep this coupon side and then put in the ticket side so that we can draw.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy, guys.
We're here to support the hemp industry. For the agricultural community, it's going to replace tobacco.
I've really been interested on the natural medicinal treatments and purposes of hemp. So I'm very excited to be here just to really learn and meet a few folks in the industry and help to support the hemp industry.
I'm here at the hemp dinner because I work at the Hunt Morgan House, which was built based on the labor of hemp, and the Hemp Heritage Alliance and the Bluegrass Trust is forming a hemp museum within the house.
I've been on a lifelong mission to prove to people that cannabis is harmless and helpful. I'm glad that we have hemp now, but we're not finished, and I'm not finished. And until cannabis is 100% legal and grows in gardens next to tomatoes where it's rightful places, I'm not going to stop.
Oh, and that's your table seating. You said you're with Bluegrass Trust.
Right.
I think they're at table 10.
Okay, great.
We welcome all of you to Ashland. We're so pleased to have you. This is our second annual hemp dinner. Hemp was very important to Henry Clay. He spent a great deal of time in the processing and growing of hemp, made a great deal of money on hemp. A great many of the people that he enslaved were enslaved for the purposes of producing hemp. We need to remember that this industry is built on that foundation. The foundation welcomes you. Jim Clark, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's a very important thing that we must bear in mind.
Our goal was to incorporate all the historic crops we've been growing and include other historic sites with hemp history. One being here at Ashland. We're going to have a hemp museum at the Hunt Morgan House here in Lexington. We talked about the good, the bad, the ugly. It's an unfortunate part of our history that people who were enslaved were forced to work these hemp farms until, abolition. Processing and growing was not easy during that time. The hemp break was exhausting. We not only want to touch on the history and the pioneers who kind of led that, but also shed light on the lives and the unfortunate past, but also to help that better steer us in the right direction going forward and create, a memorial to them, really, because without them, there would not have been an industry.
It's been a long road of debate to reach an agreement on the 2018 Farm Bill.
I'm especially proud that the legislation will open a new door for farmers in Kentucky.
This bill benefits our farmers, producers, and consumers.
To explore the full potential of industrial hemp.
Protecting crop insurance and providing certainty to farmers.
And removes it from the controlled substances list. It gives states the opportunity to be the primary overseers of hemp production.
The actual hemp program that we've been operating under since 2014 has not changed much just based on the passage of the Farm Bill. It's been set up to not miss a beat whenever legalization happened on the federal level. About a year ago, they started letting hemp companies use credit card processing, but instead of normal rates, we had high-risk rates, so we were getting charged a lot. Not long after the Farm Bill was signed, I got a call from a local bank here that basically said, hey, we're ready to provide you with a credit card processing at normal terms, just like everybody else. So that's a huge deal for us and bringing this into the mainstream.
The other thing is, as a grower, you want to be able to move your product freely. If we make any money, that we can put our money into the bank freely without any issues. I think that the Farm Bill passing with the hemp legislation is a bonus for us growers. Don't want to lose anything, don't want to gain anything. All right.
Now that the 2018 Farm Bill passed, we're going to see more impact amongst rural economies. It opens up enormous doors and windows for our industry to become very mature very rapidly. Hemp was recently recognized by the Food and Drug Administration as having GRAS status, which is generally regarded as safe, which for an ingredient is the difference between your products being niche and your products being widespread and scalable. And that's where we are today.
We decided it was time to let America's farmers show everyone what hemp could do. First, I included experimental pilot programs for states like Kentucky in the 2014 Farm Bill, and the results have been undeniable.
Hemp is offering promise to small farmers who may have lost a lot of income due to tobacco.
The biggest market and the biggest driver for hemp production in the United States is CBD, or cannabidiol. And right now we're excited about that potential, and again, that's been a reason that we're seeing hemp legalized today and the industry growing so rapidly. However, the industrial potential of the plants for construction materials, car parts, biofuels, energy sources, we really think those are the long-term investments. So the trail highlights those.
I was proud to represent the interest of Kentucky farmers during this process, and I look forward to a new year of growth and prosperity for farmers and producers across rural America. I yield back.
The day that it passed Congress, I definitely had this load of anxiety overcome myself, just because it's knowing what's ahead. It opens the floodgates to enormous growth opportunities, some of which may be a little overpowering, between the small scale, small business, artisanal entrepreneurs versus the corporate powerhouses that are coming in, seeing dollar size and wanting to capitalize.
Even though hemp is now legal on a federal level, it doesn't mean that it's not still illegal in certain states. There was recently a situation in Idaho. A hemp shipment was pulled over and the driver was arrested. And even though the bill of lading said hemp, I think the Idaho State Trooper was following Idaho law when he arrested him for narcotics possession. 4 states prohibit CBD. Idaho's one of those. There will still be a few states where hemp is going to be illegal. Those kinds of issues, I suppose, will be resolved in the courts eventually.
Just put a tag on here. I just know from a personal side of it that I've seen where the other crop has benefited one person in my family tremendously, and that's basically how I even got into the hemp business, because I saw where there were some extreme benefits to the other crop that has helped my sister. And I think that if it's going in that direction, I am all for it. If we can collect our tax dollars off of a legal crop, why not do that? It's happening anyway, whether we're there or not. So again, I think if it's regulated the way that hemp is being done in the state of Kentucky with the rules and regulations, I don't see any issues.
We've always been open about the fact that we support all cannabis legislation and legalization. So with that being said, if it means freeing the seed and letting people benefit and grow from the cannabis plant, we have been focused particularly on hemp just because of Kentucky's historic role in that industry.
Although it's all coming from the same plant, we're using very different parts of it. I think one of the advantages that we have here in Kentucky is that we're the leaders in industrial hemp. We're the leaders in the plants that have less than 0.3% THC. And so for that, I think it's going to be an interesting and vigorous debate about how it impacts the economy in Kentucky.
I think 100% it's way better for an individual to be able to walk into a store and know what they're buying. When you push it into the black market, then it just creates a disaster. I mean, look at the opioid epidemic, and those are opioids, so it's like a far different impact on your body. But still, there's, heroin now cut with fentanyl, and people are going on the street buying heroin. No one's going to overdose on cannabis, but there still is that quality control factor. When you take that regulation out, then you're giving that not only the quality to the black market, but also the money to the black market.
When you talk about hemp and marijuana, there are really 3 different groups. Some who would oppose federal legislation for either, some who would support both being legal on the federal level, and then some who would be pro-hemp and anti-marijuana. So
Me personally, I think it's totally stupid that the plant is regulated as a Schedule I narcotic. And we should not imprison people for using it, because most people that are using it are younger, and imprisoning them, it would then ruin their lives.
What brought CBD into the mainstream was kids with epilepsy as a potential source of medicine. Some of those kids need to have a 1-to-1 ratio. So even though we have legal CBD here in Kentucky, everybody is focused on keeping that THC content below 0.3%. While our intention was never to get anybody high, we can do more with CBD if we're allowed to integrate a little bit more THC into what we do.
Now that hemp is legal, that history is more important and exciting than ever. Kentucky intends to reclaim and keep its leadership as the top hemp producing state in the nation. So our history and our heritage, we can really use that to keep that place and to inspire the new industry.
I see the future actually lies here in Kentucky because of our past.
Like, oh,